Imagine standing on the silent fields of Gettysburg Battlefield, Pennsylvania, where the grass grows soft over soil that once drank the blood of thousands. The air feels heavy here, as if it remembers every scream, every prayer, every final breath taken during the Civil War. This land was once a battlefield, but some believe it never stopped being one. When night falls and the fog begins to crawl across the ground, the battlefield changes. Shapes start to form within the mist, figures that look like soldiers frozen in time, their faces pale, their uniforms torn, their eyes empty yet watching. Visitors often speak of hearing distant gunshots echoing through the fog, even though no weapon has been fired here for more than a century. The sound is sharp, sudden, followed by screams that rise and disappear into the wind. Paranormal researchers believe these are not simple echoes of the past, but trapped souls reliving their final moments again and again. Some go further and say this land has attracted Jinn, ancient unseen beings drawn to suffering, death, and intense human emotion. In Islamic belief, Jinn exist alongside humans, invisible yet powerful, and places soaked in blood and fear are said to be their preferred domains. As the fog thickens, witnesses describe seeing soldiers marching silently, their boots making no sound, their rifles carried low, as if the battle never ended. Some figures vanish the moment you blink, while others stand still, staring directly at the living. There are accounts of people feeling sudden drops in temperature, whispers brushing against their ears, voices calling out names that no one present recognizes. A few have reported being touched, hands cold as stone gripping their arms, before disappearing into the mist. Many believe the restless souls of fallen soldiers are not alone here. The Jinn are said to mimic the dead, taking the shape of wounded men, crying for help, luring the curious deeper into the fog. People who follow these voices often return shaken, unable to explain where they were for hours. Their memories blurred, as if something erased parts of their time. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain instantly, and animals refuse to enter certain areas of the battlefield, growling at empty space, as if sensing something unseen. At Gettysburg, history does not sleep. The battlefield breathes, watches, and waits. When the fog rolls in and the night grows quiet, the line between the living and the dead becomes dangerously thin, and the echoes of war are no longer just echoes. Gettysburg Battlefield is not just a historical location marked by monuments and silent cannons. It is a place where time feels broken, where the past bleeds endlessly into the present. The land itself seems aware, as if it remembers every footstep of the soldiers who once marched here, with trembling hands and fearful hearts. Long before night arrives, there is already something uneasy in the air, a pressure that settles on the chest, making each breath feel heavier than the last. Historians describe Gettysburg as a turning point of the Civil War. But those who have walked its fields alone will tell you that the war never truly ended here. It simply became invisible. As daylight fades, shadows stretch unnaturally across the open fields, and the wind begins to whisper through the tall grass, carrying sounds that do not belong to the present. Some say these whispers are only imagination, but others recognize them as fragments of prayers, cries for mercy, and final words spoken by dying men. The battlefield has absorbed these voices, storing them deep within the soil, and when conditions are right, it releases them back into the world. This is why many believe Gettysburg exists in two realities at once, one seen by the living, and another occupied by restless souls who never left. Islamic scholars and spiritual researchers suggest that places of massive bloodshed become gateways for Jinn. Jinn are not ghosts. They are ancient beings made of smokeless fire, intelligent, unseen, and capable of influencing human perception. Gettysburg, soaked in fear, pain, and death, is said to be a powerful magnet for them. The emotional energy of thousands dying violently creates an environment where Jinn can thrive, hide, and manipulate. Visitors have reported seeing soldiers whose faces change when observed too long, their eyes turning hollow, their forms distorting as if something else is wearing the image of a human being. At night, fog rolls across the battlefield like a living creature, crawling low to the ground, wrapping itself around trees, cannons, and gravestones. Within this fog, figures appear, men standing silently, rifles resting against their shoulders, heads bowed as if waiting for orders that will never come. Some witnesses swear these figures are not spirits, but Jinn mimicking the dead, feeding on fear and confusion. Others believe the souls of the soldiers are trapped, unable to move on, replaying their final moments in endless loops. The terrifying part is that no one can truly tell the difference. There are accounts of people walking the battlefield at dusk and suddenly feeling surrounded, even though the land is wide and open. The sensation comes without warning, a sudden awareness of unseen eyes watching from every direction. Footsteps are heard behind them, slow and deliberate. But when they turn, nothing is there. Then comes the sound of distant gunfire, sharp and violent, echoing across the fields. These gunshots are not random, they follow patterns, as if an invisible battle is unfolding once again. Paranormal investigators have recorded these sounds on equipment, even when the area is completely silent to the naked ear. Some believe the Jinn here do not merely observe but interact, especially with those who are emotionally vulnerable. Visitors struggling with grief or fear often report stronger experiences, whispers calling their names, shadows moving against the direction of the light, sudden waves of sadness that do not belong to them. It is said the Jinn exploit human weakness, amplifying emotions to create openings between worlds. In these moments, the battlefield becomes a place where reality bends, and the living briefly step into the realm of the unseen. The souls of the fallen soldiers are described as confused, unaware that the war has ended. Many were young, far from home, dying in agony and terror. Such souls, according to spiritual belief, may linger if their deaths were sudden and unresolved. At Gettysburg, these souls are believed to wander, searching for comrades, searching for meaning, searching for an ending that never arrived. People have reported hearing roll calls, being answered by voices with no bodies, drums beating softly in the distance, and commands shouted into empty air. Animals react violently to certain areas of the battlefield. Dogs refuse to walk forward, horses panic without reason. Birds fall silent as if sensing a presence beyond human perception. These reactions strengthen the belief that Gettysburg is inhabited by forces unseen. Jinn are known to reveal themselves indirectly, through disturbances in nature, through fear that arises without cause. Cameras malfunction, compasses spin uselessly, and electronic devices lose power suddenly, especially near areas where the fighting was most intense. Some witnesses describe encounters that go beyond sight and sound. They speak of sudden cold hands gripping their arms, of being pushed or guided in certain directions, of losing time without explanation. One moment they are walking across the field, and the next they find themselves far from where they began, hours having passed with no memory of how. In Islamic tradition, such experiences are often linked to jinn interference, especially in locations where spiritual boundaries are thin. Gettysburg does not feel like a place that welcomes visitors after dark. There is an unspoken warning in the air, a sense that something ancient and watchful is aware of every presence. The land feels crowded even when empty, heavy with memories that refuse to fade. Some say the battlefield feeds on attention, growing stronger when people come seeking fear, curiosity, or proof. Others believe the jinn and restless souls grow agitated when disturbed, reenacting fragments of the past as a way of expressing their unrest. Those who have spent a night near the battlefield often leave changed. They speak less, sleep poorly, and carry an unease that lingers long after they return home. Nightmares follow them, visions of fog, screaming men, burning pain, and eyes watching from the darkness. Some report hearing whispers days later, far from Gettysburg, as if something followed them back, attached itself quietly, unseen but present. In spiritual belief, jinn are capable of attachment, especially when invited by fear or fascination. Gettysburg Battlefield remains a place where history is not confined to books or monuments. It breathes through the soil, moves within the fog, and watches from the shadows. Whether inhabited by the restless souls of fallen soldiers, ancient jinn drawn by suffering, or something even older that feeds on human tragedy, the battlefield stands as a reminder that some places never forget, never forgive, and never truly return to silence. Because when the wind shifts and the fog thickens, you can still feel them standing there, waiting, listening, remembering, and watching as if the next command is about to be given, and the war is about to begin again from the very moment where reality fractures, and the unseen steps closer, closer, until the air itself feels crowded with breathing that does not belong to the living, and the ground beneath your feet seems to pulse with memories that have no intention ever letting go. The fog at Gettysburg does not behave like ordinary fog. It does not simply drift or fade with the rising sun. It moves with intention, rolling low across the battlefield, as if it knows where to go. Witnesses often say it appears suddenly, even on clear nights, thickening within minutes, and swallowing the land whole. As visibility drops, sound becomes distorted, and that is when the gunshots begin. Sharp cracks echo through the mist, followed by the thunder of cannon fire that seems to shake the ground itself. These sounds do not come from any direction that can be traced. They surround you, above you, behind you, as if the battlefield itself is firing back at the living. Many visitors freeze when they hear the first shot, their minds struggling to accept what their ears are telling them. There are no reenactments scheduled, no nearby ranges, no storms to explain the noise. Yet the gunfire continues, sometimes rhythmic, sometimes chaotic, mimicking the panic of battle. Paranormal researchers believe these sounds are not recordings of the past, but manifestations of trapped energy. Moments of extreme violence replaying endlessly. Others believe the sounds are deliberately produced by jinn, entities known for mimicking human experiences to terrify and confuse those who wander too close. As the fog thickens, shapes begin to form within it. At first, they appear as vague shadows, barely noticeable unless you stare too long. But slowly, outlines sharpen into figures, men standing shoulder to shoulder, rifles raised, uniforms torn and darkened, as if still soaked with blood. These figures do not move like living beings. They flicker, fade, and reappear a few steps closer each time you look away. Some witnesses claim the figures only appear when the gunshots sound, as if summoned by the noise of war. Islamic belief suggests that jinn can take on forms that humans recognize, especially in places of trauma. At Gettysburg, the jinn are said to wear the faces of fallen soldiers, blending seamlessly with the restless souls that linger here. This makes it nearly impossible to distinguish between the spirit of a man who died in battle and an ancient being imitating his suffering. Those who encounter these figures often describe an overwhelming sense of dread, not just fear, but the feeling of being deliberately watched and judged. The fog distorts perception. Distances become impossible to judge, and familiar landmarks vanish entirely. People walking straight paths suddenly find themselves turned around, disoriented, unable to remember how long they have been walking. In these moments, whispers emerge from the mist, soft at first, almost comforting. Voices call out names, beg for help, or issue military commands. Some hear prayers spoken in trembling voices. Others hear cries of pain, so real they feel it in their bones. According to spiritual belief, jinn exploit such moments, using sound to lure humans deeper into vulnerable states where fear overrides reason. Gunshots sometimes sound so close that visitors instinctively duck, feeling the air snap beside their ears. The smell of gunpowder has been reported as well, sharp and unmistakable, despite there being no physical source. Paranormal investigators have captured sudden spikes in electromagnetic readings at the exact moment these sounds occur, suggesting an unseen presence interacting with the environment. Some believe the restless souls are attempting to reenact their final moments, while others believe the jinn manipulate these souls, stirring chaos to feed on the fear produced. Figures in the fog are not always soldiers. Some witnesses describe shadowy forms that do not resemble humans at all, tall, twisted shapes that move against the wind, vanishing when approached. These are often associated with intense cold, sudden nausea, or crushing pressure in the chest. In Islamic tradition, such physical reactions are common during jinn encounters, as these beings are capable of influencing the human body as well as the mind. People report being unable to move, as if held in place by invisible hands, while the sounds of battle rage around them. There are stories of individuals who followed figures into the fog, believing they were lost reenactors or injured visitors. These people often reappear hours later, shaken and unable to recall where they went. Some remember fragments, marching alongside silent men, hearing commands spoken without mouths moving, feeling the ground tremble with each step. A few describe moments where the figures turned to face them, their faces shifting, human features melting into something older, darker, eyes burning with awareness far beyond that of any ghost. Animals react violently when the gunshots begin. Birds scatter suddenly, horses rear and refuse to move, dogs whimper and pull away from the fog, as if sensing danger. Nature itself seems to recognize what humans struggle to accept. The battlefield becomes unnaturally quiet between bursts of sound, a silence so deep it feels suffocating. Then, without warning, the noise returns louder than before, closer, more aggressive, as if the unseen forces are responding to attention. Many believe the fog acts as a veil between worlds, thinning the boundary that normally separates the living from the unseen. When it rolls in, Gettysburg becomes a shared space, occupied simultaneously by humans, restless souls, and Jinn. This overlap creates confusion, fear, and instability, allowing experiences that should be impossible. Time behaves strangely in these moments. Watches stop working. Phones lose signal, and people lose track of hours. Some swear they hear modern voices mixed with cries from the past, layered together in a terrifying chorus. Those sensitive to spiritual energy often describe the battlefield during fog as crowded, as if thousands of presences are packed into the open fields. Breathing becomes difficult, not from physical exertion, but from the sensation that the air itself is heavy with unseen life. Islamic scholars warn that such places should not be visited without spiritual protection, as Jinn are known to attach themselves to those who enter their territory unguarded. There are accounts of visitors experiencing disturbances long after leaving Gettysburg. Recurring nightmares, unexplained sounds, feelings of being watched in empty rooms. Some researchers suggest that the gunshots are not merely echoes but signals, triggering responses from both souls and Jinn. Each sound reopens old wounds, pulling the dead back into motion, while the Jinn amplify the chaos. Figures in the fog sometimes appear to react to the gunfire, dropping, charging forward, or turning suddenly toward observers, as if realizing they are being seen. This moment of recognition is often described as the most terrifying, when the line between observer and participant collapses completely. Gettysburg under fog is not a passive haunting. It is active, aggressive, and unpredictable. The battlefield does not simply show visions, it engages, surrounds, and overwhelms. Gunshots tear through the silence, figures emerge and vanish, whispers guide and deceive, and the unseen presses closer with every step taken into the mist. Whether these manifestations are the restless souls of soldiers, unable to escape their final moments, Jinn feeding on centuries, old suffering, or a combination of both, the result is the same: a place where reality fractures, where fear becomes physical, where the fog hides not emptiness but presence, and where every echo of gunfire feels like a warning that the battle is not over, that it is still happening just beyond sight, just within reach, waiting for someone to hear the sound, see the shape, follow the figure, and step fully into the moment where the past and the unseen collide and refuse to let go. The soldiers who fell at Gettysburg did not all leave this world peacefully. Many died screaming in pain, calling out for mothers, brothers, and friends who would never hear them. Their deaths were sudden, violent, and filled with terror, and such endings, according to spiritual belief, do not always allow the soul to depart cleanly. The battlefield became a grave not only for bodies, but for unfinished emotions, broken thoughts, and final moments that never found closure. It is believed that many of these souls remain trapped, unaware that the war has ended, replaying fragments of their last hours, as if time itself collapsed at the moment of their death. As night falls, the air at Gettysburg grows thick with sorrow. Visitors often describe a crushing sadness that appears without warning, an emotion so heavy it feels foreign, as if it does not belong to them. This is said to be the weight of thousands of restless souls pressing against the living, seeking recognition, seeking release, or simply seeking to be remembered. These souls are not always visible, but their presence is felt in sudden chills, in breaths that fog the air even on warm nights, in the sense that someone is standing just behind you when no one is there. Many paranormal accounts describe encounters with soldiers who appear confused, wounded, and unaware of their own deaths. These figures wander aimlessly through the fields, clutching invisible injuries, staring into the distance, as if waiting for orders that will never come. Some attempt to speak, their mouths moving silently, while others let out cries that fade into whispers before reaching human ears. Spiritual researchers believe these are earthbound souls, unable to move on due to the trauma of their deaths and the overwhelming chaos that surrounded them. In Islamic belief, such restless souls can attract jinn. Jinn are beings created from smokeless fire, existing in a dimension unseen by humans, yet capable of interacting with the physical world. They are drawn to places of intense emotion, fear, and suffering, and Gettysburg offers all of this in abundance. The battlefield, soaked in blood and grief, is said to be a gathering place where jinn observe, manipulate, and sometimes exploit the wandering souls of the dead. Some jinn are believed to mimic these souls, wearing their appearances like masks. This imitation is not done out of sympathy, but as a means of deception. Witnesses have reported seeing soldiers whose expressions shift unnaturally, whose movements feel wrong, whose presence radiates a cold intelligence rather than confusion. These encounters often leave observers shaken, unable to describe exactly what felt wrong, only that the figure did not feel human, nor did it feel like a simple ghost. There are darker beliefs that suggest some jinn bind themselves to restless souls, feeding off their despair and using their memories to create terrifying manifestations. In such cases, the battlefield becomes a stage where the past is reenacted under the control of unseen forces. Gunshot wounds reopen, screams repeat endlessly, and scenes of battle unfold without beginning or end. The souls, trapped within these loops, are unable to escape, while the jinn grow stronger from the fear generated by both the dead and the living. Visitors have described hearing conversations between unseen soldiers, spoken in trembling voices, filled with urgency and panic. Names are called, orders are shouted, prayers are whispered desperately into the darkness. Sometimes, these voices respond to questions, answering in ways that make no sense, as if trapped between moments in time. Spiritual experts warn that engaging with such voices can invite jinn interaction, as jinn often use familiar language and emotional vulnerability to draw humans closer. Some individuals report physical sensations during these encounters. A sudden pressure on the chest, the feeling of being pushed to the ground, or the sensation of hands gripping their arms or shoulders. These touches are often ice, cold, unnatural, and accompanied by an overwhelming sense of fear. In Islamic tradition, such physical contact is a known sign of jinn interference, especially in locations where spiritual boundaries are weak. The souls of Gettysburg are said to wander endlessly, bound to the land where they fell. Many died without proper burial, left in open fields for days, their bodies exposed to the elements. This lack of dignity is believed to have contributed to their unrest. Even today, people claim to hear the sounds of shovels scraping earth, of bodies being dragged across the ground, of low moans rising from beneath the soil. These sounds often occur late at night, when the battlefield is quiet and the mind has no distractions to shield it from fear. Some believe the souls attempt to communicate through dreams. Visitors who spend time at Gettysburg often report vivid nightmares following their trip. They see flashes of battle, feel the pain of wounds they never suffered, and experience terror that feels deeply personal. These dreams are often repetitive, as if the souls are trying to share their final moments, to be understood, or to unburden themselves. Islamic scholars caution that Jinn can influence dreams, using them as a gateway to attach themselves to the living. Animals are believed to sense the restless souls more clearly than humans. Horses become agitated, dogs refuse to walk certain paths, and birds suddenly scatter as if fleeing an unseen threat. These reactions often occur in areas where deaths were particularly brutal. The presence of both souls and Jinn creates a layered haunting, one that affects all living beings who enter the space. There are stories of visitors who felt compelled to follow invisible soldiers across the battlefield, guided by voices only they could hear. These individuals often describe entering a trance-like state, losing awareness of their surroundings. When they return, hours later, they are confused, disoriented, and emotionally drained. Some cannot recall large portions of time, while others remember walking through scenes of battle that felt completely real. Such experiences are often attributed to Jinn manipulation, using the memories of restless souls to create convincing illusions. The battlefield seems to resist peace. Even memorial ceremonies, held to honor the dead, sometimes coincide with unexplained disturbances. Sudden gusts of wind, flickering lights, malfunctioning equipment, and overwhelming waves of sadness disrupt moments meant for remembrance. It is as if the souls themselves are unable to rest, unable to accept that the world has moved on while they remain trapped. Islamic teachings suggest that souls who die violently may linger if divine order is disrupted by extreme trauma. When such souls gather in one place, their collective energy can alter the environment. Jinn, drawn by this energy, may settle nearby, forming a hidden population that exists alongside the spirits of the dead. At Gettysburg, this coexistence creates a complex haunting, one that is not limited to visual apparitions, but extends into emotional, physical, and psychological experiences. Those who visit the battlefield frequently speak of a sense of being unwelcome, as if the land itself resents intrusion. This feeling intensifies at night, when the shadows grow deeper and the silence becomes oppressive. Some say the souls watch silently from the darkness, while the Jinn observe with curiosity or malice. Together they create an atmosphere where fear feels alive, where every step feels watched, where every sound carries meaning. The restless souls of Gettysburg are not at peace, and neither is the land that holds them. Their suffering lingers, woven into the soil, carried by the wind, reflected in the fog that creeps across the fields. Whether these souls are seeking release, recognition, or simply repeating their final moments, their presence remains undeniable. And as long as the battlefield continues to draw the living, the cycle continues, with Jinn moving unseen among the wandering spirits, feeding on grief, confusion, and fear, shaping the haunting into something far more complex, and terrifying than simple ghosts. Something that waits patiently in the darkness, listening for footsteps, watching for curiosity, and reaching out through whispers, dreams, and shadows, refusing to fade, refusing to rest, lingering endlessly in the space where life ended violently and never truly moved on. There is a belief whispered among paranormal researchers and spiritual scholars that Gettysburg is not only haunted by the souls of fallen soldiers, but is also a place where actively interfere with the living. Unlike ghosts, which are often bound to memory and emotion, Jinn are conscious, aware, and capable of intention. At Gettysburg, they are said to observe visitors quietly at first, studying fear, curiosity, and emotional weakness before making their presence known. Many who walk these fields believe they are alone, but in reality, they are being watched from the moment they step onto the land. The first signs of interaction are subtle. A sudden shift in temperature, a feeling of dizziness, a pressure behind the eyes that makes thoughts feel heavy and slow. People often dismiss these sensations as imagination or fatigue, unaware that in Islamic belief, such symptoms are common during early jinn influence. The battlefield, saturated with centuries of sorrow, creates a perfect environment for these beings to move freely, blending their presence with the restless souls that wander endlessly. Whispers are one of the most common forms of contact. Visitors report hearing voices speak directly into their ears, not loud, not aggressive, but intimate, familiar. These voices often sound like wounded soldiers asking for help or lost comrades calling out names. The danger lies in how convincing they are. Jinn are known to imitate human voices perfectly, using emotional triggers to draw attention. Those who respond, even silently, are believed to open a door, allowing deeper interaction. As the influence grows stronger, some people experience visual disturbances. Figures appear at the edge of vision, vanishing the moment they are directly observed. Shadows move independently of light sources, stretching unnaturally across the ground. In some cases, visitors see soldiers approach them slowly through the fog, faces hidden, movements stiff and unnatural. When these figures come close, witnesses often report a wave of terror, so intense it feels forced upon them, as if something is deliberately amplifying their fear. Islamic teachings describe jinn as beings capable of manipulating human perception, creating illusions that feel real. At Gettysburg, this manipulation is believed to be enhanced by the presence of restless souls. The jinn use the memories and emotions of these souls like tools, reconstructing scenes of battle to confuse and overwhelm the living. Visitors have described suddenly finding themselves surrounded by screaming soldiers, cannon fire exploding around them, blood soaking the ground beneath their feet, only for the vision to vanish in an instant, leaving them standing alone in silence. Physical interaction is rare, but deeply disturbing when it occurs. Some individuals report feeling hands on their shoulders, fingers brushing against their necks, or a sudden push from behind. These sensations are often accompanied by paralysis, an inability to move or speak, while fully aware of their surroundings. In Islamic belief, this state is associated with jinn domination, where the entity exerts control over the human body temporarily. Victims describe intense fear, mixed with helplessness, as if their will has been overridden. There are stories of people being led away from marked paths without realizing it. They follow voices or figures, convinced they are helping someone in need, only to find themselves deep within the battlefield, disoriented and unable to retrace their steps. Time behaves strangely during these incidents. Minutes feel like hours. Hours vanish completely. When these individuals are later found, they often cannot explain where they were or what they experienced, only that they felt guided, compelled by something they could not resist. The Jinn at Gettysburg are believed to exploit emotional vulnerability. Those carrying grief, guilt, or unresolved trauma often experience stronger encounters. It is said the Jinn can sense emotional wounds and press against them, amplifying sadness into despair, fear into panic. Visitors have broken down crying without knowing why, overwhelmed by emotions that do not feel like their own. This emotional manipulation serves a purpose: weakening mental defenses and making the individual more receptive to further influence. Restless souls play a tragic role in this interaction. Many are believed to be unaware of the Jinn, using their likeness, their voices, their pain. Some spiritual interpretations suggest that the Jinn bind themselves to these souls, feeding on their confusion, while using them as conduits to reach the living. This creates a layered haunting, where the dead suffer repeatedly, and the living are drawn into their suffering unknowingly. Nighttime intensifies everything. As darkness spreads across the battlefield, the Jinn become bolder. Shadows deepen, sounds carry farther, and the sense of being watched grows overwhelming. Visitors often describe the feeling that the land itself is alive, breathing, listening. Every footstep feels loud, every movement feels noticed. In these moments, fear becomes a presence of its own, heavy and suffocating. Some individuals report hearing their own thoughts echoed back to them in whispers, a deeply unsettling experience. This is believed to be a tactic used by Jinn to establish dominance, proving awareness of the human mind. When this occurs, the victim often experiences confusion, paranoia, and a loss of trust in their own senses. Reality begins to feel unstable, as if it could collapse at any moment. Animals sense these interactions immediately. Dogs refuse to move forward, growling at empty air. Horses panic suddenly, eyes wide, breathing fast, reacting to something unseen. Birds scatter from trees without warning, leaving behind unnatural silence. In Islamic tradition, animals are more sensitive to Jinn presence, and their reactions are considered warnings to humans who are unable to perceive the unseen directly. After leaving Gettysburg, some visitors continue to experience disturbances. Objects move on their own. Unexplained noises occur at night. Shadows appear where they should not. Nightmares become frequent, vivid, and repetitive. These dreams often involve soldiers, fog, whispers, and a feeling of being chased or watched. Some believe this indicates attachment, where a Jinn follows the individual home, drawn by fear or fascination. Spiritual healers warn that such attachments are difficult to break. The Jinn do not always seek harm. Some are curious, others malicious, and some simply feed on emotional energy. At Gettysburg, where suffering is abundant, their behavior becomes unpredictable. They may torment one visitor and ignore another entirely, making the battlefield a place of constant uncertainty. The most frightening aspect is the intelligence behind these interactions. Unlike simple hauntings, Jinn encounters feel deliberate. The timing of sounds, the placement of figures, the manipulation of emotion all suggest awareness and intent. Visitors often describe the sensation of being tested, as if something unseen is measuring their fear, their reaction, their weakness. Gettysburg becomes more than a haunted battlefield under this perspective. It transforms into a spiritual trap, a place where the living step unknowingly into a space controlled by unseen forces. The restless souls wander endlessly, trapped in their pain, while the Jinn move freely among them, shaping the experience for those who dare to enter. Every whisper, every shadow, every sudden wave of emotion becomes part of a larger pattern, one that is difficult to recognize until it is too late. Those who sense danger and leave quickly often describe a feeling of relief the moment they cross the boundary of the battlefield, as if something released its grip. Others are not so fortunate. Some carry the experience with them, etched into their thoughts, their dreams, their sense of safety. Gettysburg does not simply scare, it marks those who encounter its unseen inhabitants. The interaction between Jinn and humans at Gettysburg is not always violent, but it is always unsettling. It blurs the line between memory and manipulation, between history and haunting. The battlefield watches, listens, and responds. And for those who linger too long, who listen too closely to the whispers, or follow the figures into the fog, the experience becomes something far deeper than a ghost story, something that feels intentional, intelligent, and aware, as if the unseen has noticed them, chosen them, and is now quietly stepping closer, learning their fears, mirroring their thoughts, waiting for the moment when resistance fades and the presence, that has been observing from the shadows, finally decides to make itself known. Those who experience Gettysburg often say the most terrifying part is not what they see, but what they feel. The battlefield has a way of reaching beyond sight and sound, invading the senses in subtle, intimate ways that feel deeply personal. Long before any figure appears in the fog or any gunshot echoes through the night, visitors report a sudden change within themselves. A quiet pressure settles over the mind, thoughts slow down, and an unfamiliar stillness fills the air, as if the world is holding its breath. This is usually when the whispers begin. The whispers at Gettysburg are not loud or dramatic. They are soft, close, and deliberate, spoken in tones that feel meant for only one listener. Some hear their names spoken clearly, even when no one else is nearby. Others hear fragments of sentences, broken prayers, or desperate pleas for help. These voices often sound human, filled with pain and urgency, and many believe they belong to the restless souls of soldiers who died calling out for someone who never came. But Islamic belief warns that Jinn are masters of imitation, capable of copying human voices perfectly, especially when those voices are soaked in fear and suffering. What makes the whispers so dangerous is how convincing they are. They do not command at first, they invite. They ask questions, offer guidance, or express confusion. A visitor may hear a voice asking for water, calling for a medic, or begging not to be left behind. Responding, even mentally, is believed to strengthen the connection. In spiritual understanding, acknowledging the unseen gives it permission to draw closer, and at Gettysburg, that closeness can quickly become overwhelming. As the whispers continue, physical sensations begin to follow. A sudden cold breeze passes through, even on warm nights, sending chills down the spine. Some feel a brush against their arm, light enough to be mistaken for wind, yet deliberate enough to raise alarm. Others describe the unmistakable sensation of fingers touching their necks, hands resting on their shoulders, or pressure against their backs, as if someone is standing directly behind them. These touches are often icy, unnatural, and accompanied by an intense wave of fear that feels injected rather than emotional. Islamic scholars explain that jinn can interact physically with humans, especially in places where spiritual boundaries are thin. Gettysburg, layered with death and grief, is believed to be one of those places. The restless souls wandering the battlefield create disturbances that weaken the veil between worlds, allowing jinn to move more freely. When a visitor feels touched, it is often unclear whether the contact comes from a confused soul seeking comfort or a jinn asserting its presence. And that uncertainty itself becomes a source of terror. Lost time is one of the most disturbing experiences reported at Gettysburg. Visitors often recall walking along a familiar path, only to suddenly find themselves far from where they began, with no memory of how they arrived there. Watches stop working, phones show incorrect times, and hours vanish without explanation. Some people believe they were gone only minutes, while others discover they have lost entire sections of the night. During these gaps, memories are fragmented. Images of fog, marching footsteps, whispered voices, and a sense of being guided or watched. Spiritual interpretations suggest that jinn can influence human perception of time, creating altered states where the mind becomes detached from normal awareness. In such states, individuals are highly vulnerable. Some report feeling calm during the experience, almost numb, only realizing the danger afterward. Others feel intense panic, but are unable to move or scream, trapped in a state of paralysis, while unseen forces surround them. The restless souls of Gettysburg are believed to play a role in these time distortions. Many of these souls exist outside linear time, trapped in repeating moments of trauma. When humans enter this environment, they may briefly intersect with that timeless state, experiencing confusion, disorientation, and memory loss. Jinn are said to exploit these moments, using the instability to deepen their influence, weaving illusions from the memories of the dead. There are accounts of visitors suddenly feeling overwhelmed by exhaustion, as if their energy is being drained. Their limbs feel heavy, their breathing slows, and sitting or lying down feels unavoidable. This is often followed by vivid sensations, hearing distant breathing, feeling the ground vibrate, sensing movement all around without seeing anything. In Islamic belief, such fatigue can indicate spiritual interference, where jinn feed on emotional or mental energy, leaving the individual weakened. Some witnesses describe hearing whispers that repeat personal thoughts they never spoke aloud. This experience is deeply unsettling, creating the impression that something unseen has access to the mind itself. Scholars explain that jinn are capable of whispering into human thoughts, a phenomenon known in Islamic tradition as waswas, and places like Gettysburg amplify this effect due to the emotional residue left behind by mass suffering. After leaving the battlefield, many believe the experience should end, but for some, it does not. Nightmares begin almost immediately. Dreams filled with fog, screaming soldiers, and unseen pursuers replay night after night. Some wake up with unexplained scratches or bruises. Others hear whispers in their homes, far from Gettysburg. These ongoing disturbances are often interpreted as signs of attachment, where a jinn follows a person who unknowingly formed a connection through fear, curiosity, or interaction. Restless souls are also believed to follow sometimes, drawn to those who acknowledge their presence. These souls may appear in dreams, standing silently, watching, or reliving their deaths repeatedly. The emotional weight of these dreams leaves individuals drained, anxious, and fearful, as if carrying someone else's pain within them. Spiritual healers warn that without protection, such attachments can linger, feeding on attention and fear. Animals continue to react long after humans try to rationalize their experiences. Pets refuse to enter certain rooms, growling or staring at empty corners. Birds avoid areas where whispers are often heard. These reactions reinforce the belief that something unseen has crossed into the individual's space, something that was never meant to follow them home. The battlefield itself seems to encourage these experiences, as if marking those who come too close. Visitors often describe a final sensation just before leaving, a heavy gaze, a sudden silence, or a last whisper spoken too softly to understand. It feels less like goodbye and more like recognition, as if the unseen has taken note of them. In Islamic tradition, it is said that jinn do not always act immediately. Some observe patiently, learning habits, fears, and weaknesses. Gettysburg, with its blend of restless souls and ancient sorrow, is believed to be a place where such observation is common. The whispers, the touches, the lost time are not random. They are steps in a process, a slow unraveling of certainty. Those who dismiss their experiences often find the memories returning unexpectedly. A sudden chill, a familiar whisper in the dark, the smell of damp earth or gunpowder, appearing without cause. These moments bring back the battlefield vividly, as if part of it remains attached to the mind. The line between memory and presence blurs, leaving the individual uncertain whether they are remembering something that happened or sensing something that is happening. Now, Gettysburg does not rely on dramatic apparitions alone. Its true horror lies in the quiet invasions of the senses, the gentle touches that feel too real to deny, the whispers that know too much, and the hours that disappear without explanation. Whether caused by restless souls, unable to leave their suffering behind, or jinn drawn to the pain embedded in the land. The effect is the same, a lingering unease that follows long after the fog has cleared. For those who listen closely, who linger in the silence, who respond to the whispers, or follow the sensations, without understanding their source, the battlefield offers more than history. It offers an experience that reaches inward, reshaping perception, altering memory, and planting doubt. And once that doubt takes root, once the mind begins to question what it felt, what it heard, and what touched it in the dark, the presence does not need to remain visible, because the fear continues on its own, growing quietly, feeding on uncertainty, waiting patiently in the spaces between thoughts, between breaths, between moments of wakefulness and sleep, as if something unseen is still there, still whispering, still watching, still reaching out from the fog-soaked fields where time bends, and the unseen never truly lets go. So if you ever stand on the fields of Gettysburg and feel the air grow heavy, for no reason, if the fog begins to crawl toward your feet, and the silence suddenly feels too loud, remember that this land is not empty. Every step you take is on ground that remembers pain, fear, and unfinished lives. The restless souls of fallen soldiers still wander here, confused, wounded, and searching. while unseen Jinn move quietly among them, watching the living with ancient eyes. The gunshots you hear may not be echoes. The whispers may not be imagination, and the figures in the fog may not want to be seen at all. Gettysburg is not just a battlefield of history. It is a place where the past breathes, where the unseen listens, and where not everything that watches from the darkness is willing to let you leave unchanged. And when you finally turn away, when you think you have stepped back into safety, ask yourself one question very carefully. Did you leave Gettysburg behind, or did something choose to follow you back?